is taken over by women who power cybersecurity.
Exciting, or you secure a product to a certain point and you keep pushing the boundaries of the threat model.
It's not enough to say, I checked all the boxes that are here. I have this certification, I have that degree. Well, so do 50,000 plus other people.
Exactly. I looked at them and it was, it opened the door to a new world to me.
The idea was to build a community around it, to foster an idea that will outlast me.
I say go with your dreams, if you want to do 2 things, if you want to do 3 things, if you want to do everything professionally, you can. You should just try it.
Solid experience and a background that, when I went back out into industry was, frankly attractive.
Welcome to Hack-Chat. My name is Marco Figueroa, and today we have a special guest. It's the first guest that I haven't written anything down. I haven't done any research. I don't need to do research. This person has known me for so long. We go way back. I mean, way, way back. Talk about college days. And we had disconnected for a while, but reconnected along in the beginning of our careers and have really parallel to heights that both of us really didn't think we were going to get. And for me, we were really cool in college. We had a good relationship, friends. She was the vice president of the computer club at Temple University. Today, I am honored to have, I call her Alexandria San Miguel. Welcome to Hack-Chat.
Thank you, Marco.
Please introduce yourself to everyone out there. What is your background? What you've done? Please.
Thank you, Marco. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me. My background's, I think, an interesting one. And
I agree.
It starts back at Temple, where you and I met. I was studying computer science at that point. And yes, I was the president or the vice president of the computer club, ACM. And I used to try and recruit you into it all the time.
I agree.
I wasn't very successful, but I was persistent nonetheless. While I was there at Temple, I had a minor in business administration, and the combination of the two, obviously very technical, and then sort of business background got me into a position where I was somewhat attractive to the big fours. They had functions within them that basically, they were auditors, they were IT auditors. And given that it was an accounting firm, somebody with a business background that understood tech or vice versa was, sort of perfect for the role. At that point, I had no idea what it meant, to be honest. But I got thrown into the mix at a huge consulting firm at a time just before Sarbanes-Oxley. So if you remember, the Enron scandal ended in all public companies having to attest to their financial statements. And basically what that meant was CFOs had to basically sign off on their internal controls. And obviously nowadays, nobody's doing accounting on notebooks and paper and pen. They're all on systems. And so there was a need for folks like myself that had, again, both the tech background and an understanding of business process. And so it was a great time. It was a very fast-paced time. It set the tone for the rest of my career. There was a point where, because these public companies had no idea what Sarbanes-Oxley, SOX for short, really meant to them, they literally were just throwing millions and millions and millions and millions at these firms. And these firms had to throw people at these engagements. And so I would be, fresh out of school in a room telling a CIO how they were doing things wrong. And it made for a very, very, very rich experience. There were companies of all sizes, of all different industries. And so that set a really good pace for my career. I understood, again, technologies, and then more importantly, I think, risk management and business process and how all of those intersect. And so I spent many years at Deloitte, and then moved into the private sector. I ended up at Sony eventually, as part of their internal controls team, managing their IT audit program, IT internal controls with, again, a focus on finances, and did that for so long that I was doing it in my sleep. I became a little bit bored, and that was maybe 6 years ago. And I started sort of fishing around to figure out what the next move in my career was going to be. And our CISO at Sony Music, knocked on the door. And she said, "Come work for me. I need a risk person." And I had spent, at that point, I was a risk professional with a focus in technology, right? And she came and she said, "Come on over." And I said,
Nice.
I don't hack. I'm not a pen tester, because that's what everybody thinks of when you think of security, right? And she said, that's not what I need. I need somebody who understands process, who understands risk, who understands governance. Come work for me. And it took her a year of courting me. She convinced me. And the best decision of my career, hands down. I don't have to tell you or anybody watching this and listening to this. I mean, security is where it's at. It's been such an amazing ride since then. And now I have moved on from Sony. I am now at Run the Runway as the Director of Governance, Risk, and Compliance in their technology and security team. And so that basically means that I'm responsible for everything within the tech space and security space that has to do with, again, governance and policy and compliance and risk management, and awareness, which I think is super fun. So that's my story. It wasn't a nutshell, but that's how I've gotten here.
Let's go back, because a lot of people, I'm not gonna lie, they say I have a lot of swag. And I'm just going to be honest and let the world know, when we was in college, you hooked me up with the swag. You kind of made me go into that lane. But I do remember there was a period of time that you moved to Italy. No, it was London.
It was London.
London,
yeah,
London,
yeah.
London.
Europe. You were close.
Europe.
You were close.
Yeah, Europe, in the same ball game. What were you doing out there?
Not tech.
No, you were not doing
At
tech,
all,
but I want
at
it.
all.
You know what though?
At all.
You were
At all.
following your passion.
Yeah. So remember when I said in my very long intro of what, my story, my background, remember when I said I started to get bored? Well, I wasn't kidding when I said I started to get bored at one point.
Right.
And I decided one day I was just going to leave. I left Deloitte. I left home, and I moved to England to study shoemaking and shoe design. And it was probably one of the best years of my life. I dropped everything to just do something that was completely unrelated. It was 2007, 2008. So you can imagine how hard it was to get back into the workforce when my money ran out. But yeah, talk about, following your passions.
Yeah, for me, I'm fascinated with learning and really cutting the process of like getting to that next level. So when you left Deloitte, you went into this industry that you didn't know much about. What was your mindset in terms of learning the business? Because a lot of people are looking at cybersecurity, how much it's growing, and I'm relating it to learning a new skill. What was your mindset to say, hey, first of all, I'm going to go and do this in terms of passion? It is your passion, fashion. And by the way, if you ever see Alex, she's always dressed to the nines, like runway. But what I want to go into is when you went over there, what was your mindset in terms of learning and learning a new industry and learning a new craft and skill? How did you tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was first letting your guard down, right?
Mhm.
And allowing yourself to be open to new experience, allowing yourself to be open to absorbing something that you've never done before. I mean, it was completely different from anything I'd ever done. I was being creative and making, I'd been traditionally doing things that were very technical. You read a book, you understand some theory, you apply it in real life, but this was different. This was completely out of the box for me. And it was going and finding inspiration in whatever it was and designing, shoes at that point that came from my experience and from my inspirations. And it took a little while to figure it out, to be honest. I'd always been, like I said, in the maths, in the sciences. That's what my degrees were in, the accounting and finance. That's the stuff that I was learning. And so that's all very linear and black and white. When I had to go off and sort of, find inspiration in the food that I ate, or the countries I visited, or something I saw on TV, it was a challenge. And what it really meant was sort of throwing out the window all these traditional ways that I had learned, and allowing myself to just be a little bit more organic and fluid in how I consumed that, and then put it to paper. And I'm still very linear and black and white in the way that I approach learning. For me, I still did a lot of research. I learned all the tools, the Photoshops and Illustrator and those things. I did, because that's just the way that I am.
Yeah.
But what went into that in terms of output, design, and the artistic side of it, it took some work. And number one was just getting out of my own way.
So how did you get back into the industry as your money flow wasn't there? And
So
crisis, how did you get back in and you say, okay, I'm going back into what I'm really good at?
Well, yeah, that's it was. I was blessed that I'd had that experience before I left, and I took this chance. I was blessed that I had, solid experience, and a background that, when I went back out into industry was, frankly attractive, and I always say it's really important not to burn your bridges. When I left the UK and I was back in the US, Deloitte was more than happy to take me back. But that was working out of Philadelphia at that point, where we went to school.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided that Philly had become too small for me. I'd lived in London, and the next obvious move was New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started just really looking, and I wanted to do something outside of consulting and Big Four. I wanted to work, in the private industry and give that a swirl. And so I did, and I landed at Sony. And the work was very similar, but it was obviously internal. And so, when you're working for consulting agencies, you're going from client to client to client. And it's a very, you find something and it's up to the client to go fix it. You leave and you move on to the next customer or client. And obviously when I was internal, it was a little bit different. You find an issue and then you try and figure out how to remediate it, how to mitigate it. And it becomes sort of your issue. And so, it was easy to make the switch because the subject matter was the same. But now I had the opportunity to sort of focus just on this one environment. And it was very complex. That's obviously a huge company. But so being able to be on the inside.
Right? You moved to New York, and what year was that?
2009.
2009. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you worked at Deloitte for how long before you moved over to Sony?
So I was at Deloitte for like 4 or 5 years, went to London, then came back to the US, then started at Sony.
Okay. Directly at Sony.
Yeah, right away. Yeah, I came right. Yeah, I moved. Well, I moved to New York, and the best thing is, talk about not burning bridges. When I went to interview for the job at Sony, turns out that one of the women in the department that I was interviewing into was one of somebody I'd worked with at Deloitte.
Which meant,
and so that obviously helped.
Yeah.
That obviously helped. We didn't work. I didn't work directly with her, but she was, she obviously had some input to the hiring manager. And so then I was at Deloitte for a little bit. I was at Sony for a little bit. I left Sony and actually went back to Deloitte, but Deloitte New York City, and did that for a bit, and ended up working on a lot of like banking clients, which just wasn't my interest. It wasn't my background. I'd spent my time in retail and manufacturing when I was in Philly. And so when I moved to New York and they threw me into these banking institutions, I just had no interest. And, it is New York City. It is the financial capital of the world. And so in order for me to stay at Deloitte, I was probably going to have to keep on. And as I moved up, I was going to probably have to keep banking to some degree, but I didn't want to. And so I left and I went to another company, a large company, which most people haven't heard of, but it's a B2B. And again, I was doing the same exact work, IT risk, and got tired of that. And I went back to Sony. So, as you can see, I'm a big proponent in, not burning your bridges, because you might leave and decide you want to go back. So it's a big, I think.
So when you went back to Sony, there was an opportunity to move deep into security, and there was a heavy recruitment from the CISO.
Yeah. So when I went back to Sony, so now I'm back to Sony. This is 2013. We're talking. I went back to Sony 2013, and I was doing the same work. So IT risk, I wasn't in security yet. And I did that for a little bit. And around 2000.
Risk is security, because you're always dealing with what is the risk if you get popped or
100%. You're absolutely right. The way I see it is you have tech risk, and then you have an umbrella that is cyber risk, right? And 100% cyber is it's a conversation of enterprise risk, always.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people take that for granted. And they think it's all about all the fancy tools and pen testing and red teaming, and all that's all part of it, but it all is based on your level of risk acceptance, your risk appetite, all of that.
Yeah, for me, one of the big things, I've known you for so long, and the way you build relationships are so important. I've learned a lot from it. And a lot of hackers, a lot of techs are very isolated. What would you say, especially that you moved from job to job, but like I moved from Sony back into the Deloitte, and then I moved over to Sony. How do you build those relationships? What are some of those techniques that you can give people out there that's like, those soft skills? It's not always about tech. It's, you could be the greatest coder ever, but if you cannot communicate and get along with it is hard to really elevate yourself.
Well, I think first and foremost, as simple as it sounds, you have to listen. You have to really be good at listening. I work in a position where my job is to listen and provide value where there may be risks that need to be, identified and mitigated. But the only way I'm going to do that is by listening to those folks at every level of the organization. And so, my number one thing is when I walked into my new job 3 weeks ago, my first question to them was, what keeps you up at night? And I listened to what they said. I didn't come in to tell you what you should be scared of and what you should be worried about and what you should be doing. My question was, you tell me what's wrong. You tell me what worries you, and we'll go from there. And so I think it's really important to listen. I think it's really important not to be an asshole. And that seems simple, but I'm so serious when I say it. I have spent an entire career seated on this side of the desk where I'm telling people, what they're doing wrong, and what they should be doing, and that obviously creates a level of resistance, but I do it in a way that I'm respectful, and I'm listening, and I'm kind. And again, it sounds really simple, but people, all the technical stuff we can all learn. Anybody can learn that. But it's like it's the soft stuff. It's like you said, it's being able to carry a conversation with anybody at any level, respecting them and their experience, and really trying to figure out where you can add value in a way that doesn't feel cookie cutter, in a way that doesn't feel generic. In compliance, that's part of my job title. A lot of times people believe it to be some sort of like checklist exercise. And I'm a strong believer that no checklist fits any company or every company 100%. So, risk is never a one size fits all. Compliance shouldn't be either. And, you really want to start, at least when we're talking GRC, is understanding, the business itself, its strengths, its weaknesses, where it's going, where it's been, and all that. You get that by listening, asking the right questions and listening to responses.
There it is. I was just going to say that one of the things that I appreciate about you is when we have conversations that ranges from everything. We're friends, we have phone calls bi-monthly, every 6 months, or every month or every week. Is you ask these questions that are very thoughtful, that are very precise, right? And it allows me to take a step back, and I have to think about what the answer is. And then you could, from there, give me a better question to then allow me to get to a better answer. And I just feel like the questions that you ask allow you to be a better listener, to then interpret for me what you can give advice to. How do you get to that level? That's a different level of asking good questions. That's a skill. It's not just
I appreciate that, Marco.
Yeah.
My superpower is most certainly being able, and when we're talking professionally, is being able to walk the line between, engineers and the tech side of the house and the business side. I am walking into meetings with engineers 1 minute, and then from there walking into meetings with, the finance team the next minute. And so I've had to understand, how both sides of the house speak in their languages so that I can interpret. Because sometimes, unfortunately, as important as it is for these both sides to be on the same page, sometimes they just aren't. And it's just a matter of jargon and language. And I think the way that I don't consider myself the most eloquent person. And so for me, when thank you, but I maybe that's why, but like I dumb things down even for myself, like I
know you for 22 years. Maybe that's it. I've known you for 22 years. We have so many conversations. I think, at least for me, you've known me before I even got into the industry, and I was trying to break into the industry.
Hustling
Yeah,
since
it was
day one,
grinding, right?
for real.
And the story that I would give is like, you said earlier, you were trying to get me in. And I kid you not, she finally convinced me. I go to the last meeting of the semester 5 minutes before it ended. And I was like crushed because I was like, what? It's the last meeting of the year? I gotta wait until next September and I don't even know if I'm gonna be here. I was crushed. But I've known you for so long and I feel like, the things that you say are so impactful, at least to me, because I know it comes from a good place. When you're given advice, not only to coworkers, to friends, to mentees, what how do you communicate with them so they could understand that it's coming from a good place and not and very authentic and it's coming from the heart? I'm trying to make you better. What does that look like, right? Or how do you have that conversation with them so you could understand you're not hating, I'm just giving you love.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you said it, authenticity. I really mean it. And I try really hard to be as honest and, considerate, and, frank with the way that, when I'm speaking to somebody, again, in any relationship, really, because time is money, and I don't really have time to try and like interpret, your indirects, and like, I don't know. I don't like being spoken to that way. And so it's the age old,
Yeah.
do unto others how you want them to do unto you. And so I try really hard to just be really like honest and clear, and not beat around the bush, and again, consider it. Sometimes you're speaking to somebody who may not have as much experience, and so you have to keep in mind that like at one point you were there too.
Yep.
There's been plenty of times where somebody who is much junior to me has had questions, and to me it's something where I'm like, well, duh, but I would never react that way, because I remember at one point I was in their shoes. And so there is something special about just the human element of just interacting, no matter what stage you're at, no matter how high you climb, just some level of being humble, and appreciating that it's a journey for all of us, and we're at different points, and we're all, there's enough for everybody to go around. There's no reason that we have to fight each other or hate on each other, like you said. There's enough for all of us, and the more you uplift, the more we uplift one another, the better we're going to be, as a whole.
You were talking about journey. What is next on your journey? I know you started this new gig.
Yeah.
What's on your journey? What does that look like?
Well, Marco, you told me a few years ago that I was going to be a CISO one day, and I told you, I don't know, I don't know, but I feel differently now. Let's
put it on record.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, eventually I'd like to be C-suite, and likely a CISO, a CTO, depending on, what direction my career, takes. But right now, I'm on that path.
What is like we had this conversation, and what did I say? I wanted to be out there. What did I say when you get the so sweet? What have I told you?
You've told me a few times that one day you'd be working for me, but I don't know, Marco. I don't know.
Hold on.
I don't know.
Finish that statement off. Finish the statement off. Go ahead. What have I said? when you get the CISO suite, the
to
first
not forget
hire,
about you. What?
the first hire is going to be who?
Marco Figueroa.
Everybody knows now. This is on record that when you hit CISO and you have your first hire, it's going to be me.
Marco, we haven't talked about it too much, but I can't let this end without giving you the credit that you deserve for my journey.
Okay.
You know, we talk about journey, and honestly, Marco, we reconnected like 5 years ago, maybe something like that.
Way longer when you were coming back, when you was coming back from London.
Okay, all right. So that's longer than 5 years ago, but that was probably something like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But we probably reconnected and we probably touched base here and there, but really got cool again was once I moved into security and I realized, wait a minute, through social media probably, that you were doing, that you were obviously in the same industry, and we had a conversation and we've been like this since. And you've done so much to help shape me.
I appreciate
readings that you recommend, with the different, just all the soft stuff that you've helped me with. We're obviously in different spaces within security, but bringing me under your wing at different conferences, introducing me to so many people. It's all the stuff that really matters that you've really contributed to, like, firsthand, Marco.
And
so
I just want to put this out there. It's not just her. Yesterday I had a conversation with someone that I've never met. She reached out on LinkedIn and asked me, can I have a half hour of your time? I was like, no doubt. Just go to my calendar, send me an invite. Let's get on the phone. And this is the way I feel. Like, this game has given me so much that I want to give back so badly. Like, thank you, game, because my repayment is helping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, whatever. This Hack Chat is to give back, and it's all about helping one person over 0. If I can help one person, if they could see this and take something away, that is my North Star. And for me, helping you is an honor. Like, I care for you. You're my sis that I've never had, but I would do it for someone. Just luckily, I've known you for over 20 years now. So it just makes it that special.
Just a little time.
Seeing that light shine on you, seeing what you've done, seeing that hustle and that grind, and you continue to elevate your game. And I trickle a little bit of advice, whether you take it or not. It's the same thing you do, right? When I call you and I said, hey, I'm dealing with this, can you assist? You're like, no doubt. It's a repayment, or whatever you want to call it. I appreciate it. It's friendship, deep friendship.
It sure is.
Me, that's what this is about. And I wanted to have you on because you've meant so much over the years. The appreciation that I have for you, the advice and everything. And I still remember Rod Digger. What was the gold card you had at Temple? Gold.
It was I had 2. So it wasn't gold. I had a white. No, you're thinking of Danielle's card. Danielle had a gold card.
Yes,
Danielle. I had a black card and then I had a white card, but Danielle had the gold card.
Okay, so yes, shout out to Danielle. She was in my Spanish class, and this is who introduced me to you.
Yep.
We all used to hang out because after class we used to hang out, and I just wanted to say thank you for coming on Hack Chat. It means a lot, and I can't wait to see in 5 years where you are, because I know if you're a star, and hopefully this gives everyone and lets everyone know how big of a star you are, because the sky's the limit for you. And it's the biggest praise that I could give to you for a friend, that I see how smart you are and what you've done. And it could give you that brighter light. So thank you so much
generous
for coming on and having a conversation. Do you have any last words for anyone out there? Some advice?
I mean, I think keep learning. That's number one. Be a learner for life. Be open. Yeah, and be nice. That gets you a long way. Just if you're open to learning and you're a nice person, trust me, it takes you a long, 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 long way. Get out there, meet people. Don't be scared. Get out of your own way. That's basic life stuff, and that'll take you far in every aspect of life, truly. And it's not just at work. So that's my advice.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex, for joining. And until next time.
Thank
Take care.
you.